What?
Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
Hey guys, and welcome to Fantasy Points' newest show, the Underdog Drafter Party. I'm Jake Tribbey, and I'm here with my co-host, one of the best football writers around, Ryan Heath. Me and Ryan will be drafting Battle Royale teams, talking about our favorite scroll down options, and discussing contest-specific strategy throughout this show. With that out of the way, how are you doing, Ryan?
I'm great, man. I'm happy to get in, start drafting. I realized I spent too much time writing this week, not enough time getting action down. I waited until 15 minutes ago to bet all my props, and I got awful value because apparently I would have had really good closing line value if I bet them 2 days ago. So yeah, that's where my head's at the moment.
Yeah, it is a constant battle between creating content, ripping drafts, submitting your DraftKings teams, getting your player props in. Always a ton of fun, and yeah, with player props coming out so sporadically, it can be hard at times to get action down, because sometimes the guy you want, he might not be listed on a Wednesday, and then by the time you see him on Thursday, the line's already moved a couple yards, and it's not quite what you were hoping for. So certainly a tricky battle here, but getting into this slate, I think this is a really fun slate, a bit more fun, at least from my perspective, than last week. Looking at the quarterback position, we don't really have a ton of standout values on this slate, but at least to me, this QB6 through, I'd say, QB9, QB10 range is really, really interesting for tournaments. I think Dak Prescott, one of the best potential plays of the slate. Obviously, Jared Goff and Baker Mayfield, as you can see here, are competing in one of the highest total games on the slate. Is there anything at the QB position, Ryan, that stands out to you this week?
No, I think you nailed it. It really is those three. Plus, I would just throw Brock Purdy in as well, who I like a lot. Him and Deebo Samuel, especially, who I'm sure we'll talk about a lot today too, have been amazing against two high shells. The Vikings play a lot of those, so I really like the 49ers spot too. So yeah, a lot of great scroll downs at QB, kind of lets you be more flexible elsewhere.
Yeah, I think the hardest thing for me, and we'll see it once we get into some drafts, but once you get into the round 3, round 4 range, where it's really just quarterbacks and tight ends remaining, and then you kind of need to scroll down a bit for some of the better wide receivers, better running backs. It's a bit difficult to figure out how to play that. Hopefully we can walk through that a bit tonight. At the running back position, again, things are pretty flat. I see a pretty significant drop off after RB7 where Jordan Mason goes. Regardless, though, Jordan Mason is pretty clearly the single best value on the slate relative to ADP. We have him in our projections as the RB3 by half PPR scoring right now. And he's going RB7. So it's pretty much an auto click for me every time. Who are you looking at the running back position? And is Jordan Mason the greatest value of all time?
Yeah, Mason's amazing. But kind of the only problem with Jordan Mason is you don't want to take him on any team where you're taking any 49ers pass catcher or Purdy. And obviously I like those guys a lot too. They project just as amazing compared to their ADP. So yeah, I just want Deebo Samuel or Jordan Mason on 100% of teams. Other than that, though, at the position, I feel like I'm just trying to stay out of the middle. Like I'm happy to take Hall, happy to take Kyron, happy to take Taylor. But after that, I'm just, waiting for Jordan Mason or waiting for more of a scroll down.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think there are some pretty intriguing scroll downs on this slate. I really like Ramondre Stevenson. We were debating him last night. DraftKings has him at around 12% to score 2 touchdowns this week. The workload was really, really strong, and he's projecting quite well for us. We were actually pretty low on the New England total when I was looking last night. We bumped that up a bit. Ramondre Stevenson for us is the RB7 by half PPR projections, right behind Alvin Kamara, who's also a pretty strong value, I think, especially as a run back in some of these Dallas stacks. If you want a really gross option, and maybe we will end up drafting a share or two tonight, Najee Harris, he's a guy I mentioned on Cashing Points, but up against this Broncos run defense, I really, really like him. The matchup is quite strong. 22 opportunities last week to Jalen Warren's 4. So those are a few guys that I've sort of been targeting either as scroll down options or as just overall options. Obviously line up with Ryan on the top 3 running backs being pretty elite here. Wide receiver, I think it's a bit similar to running back where, obviously the options at the top are very strong, but then we have a really, really strong value available at the top of the second round in Deebo Samuel, who is our wide receiver 2 by half PPR projections. I mean, I certainly feel comfortable if you're drafting at the turn, taking Deebo as early as, the 6-7 turn. I don't know if I'd go much earlier. I think I'd rather just hope that he falls. Anyone else stand out to you at wide receiver this week, Ryan?
Yeah, no, that's exactly how I'm handling Deebo as well. Especially if I'm at the turn and I get like Jefferson plus the Deebo reach, that's amazing. Set up that game stack. That's kind of the only place you can do it. So that's what I try to go for. Yeah, aside from that, it does get tough after Deebo. Like I'm happy to take Rice in round 2. Not as into like the Jamar Chase, the Garrett Wilson. So I'm trying to leave the first 2 rounds with 2 wide receivers if I don't have like a particular game stack in mind. Other than that, I'm just kind of waiting for the scroll downs. Really, if like once you hit like the Xavier Worthy, he just doesn't project well. Neighbors has the injury stuff that kind of freaks me out a little bit. So yeah, it just gets very gross very quickly after Deebo. So yeah, there's absolutely no draft am I leaving the first 2 rounds without at least one wideout.
Yeah, that was one of the notes that I made. It gets really, really gross after especially the wide receiver 9 range. I mean, Deebo, there's a pretty big drop off, but then after Garrett Wilson, you see another significant drop off, and that's why no wide receivers are basically going for another 2 rounds. There are some interesting scroll down options, though. I really like Chris Godwin here. I think he's pretty interesting. JMO obviously has the upside. Olave going as late as he is certainly interesting. Hilo had a great note for caching points and for our projections, which was that, Jacksonville ran 75% man coverage last week, which is a truly absurd rate. To put that into perspective, the league leader in man coverage for all of last year was 40%. So 75% is insane, especially against Miami. If they somehow do that again, this would be an incredible matchup for Amari Cooper, who has generally crushed man coverage. So he's a scroll down option that I certainly want to target later on in drafts as well. Moving on to tight end, I think unlike last week, tight end is actually pretty deep on this slate. And so I want my tight end exposures to be largely spread out. And, as you can see, they mostly are a little low on Travis Kelce, and I'm really not taking any Isaiah Likely. I think the price is just a bit too high. Is there anyone who stands out to you at tight end, either as a potential scroll down option or on the high end?
Yeah, I mean, McBride is the tight end 1 in our projections, and I agree with that. So I kind of expect to end up with him the most, and he also kind of goes in like the dead range where the running backs have fallen off. We're waiting for Jordan Mason. The wide receivers have fallen off. So find myself taking a lot of McBride. I do like Bowers as well. You're going to get a bit of an ownership discount on him compared to the top 6. It's like a rough game environment. I think you can do some mini stack stuff with Brock Bowers and Derrick Henry, because then what that does is not only is it a mini stack and you're just making a bet on Derrick Henry over Lamar, because you're making a bet against Lamar, then you can just kind of take whatever other like naked quarterback you want. Then you can take the Anthony Richardson, the Jaden Daniels, and it all kind of lines up very neatly where that could just end up being the optimal, because probably the biggest QB that those guys are competing with it in terms of a naked play is Lamar. So I like that combination of specifically Henry, Bowers, and then like Daniels or Anthony Richardson. But yeah, that's the only place I'm really willing to get weird at tight end.
Yeah, I'm pretty much with you there. I do really like Bowers as, sort of a lower owned scroll down option. And I do really, really like that mini stack that you mentioned, pairing him with Derrick Henry. I think that is particularly sharp here. Before we move on, do you have any sort of Mark Andrews versus Isaiah Likely takes? For what it's worth, Isaiah Likely is the tight end 9 in our projections. Andrews is the tight end 6. So Andrews obviously projecting better. I think that's, pretty much consensus around the industry. Do you have a take here?
Not really. I mean, yeah, I'm just going to line up with projections there. I just kind of what we saw last week was that the Ravens couldn't pass protect, and Isaiah Likely gets all the quick stuff. And Is that going to happen against the Raiders? I'm not as sure. Like Andrews should be able to get downfield more. So yeah, I don't like love Andrews as a player or anything, but I do think he's better than likely.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think those ADPs should be flipped. Raiders did not get nearly as much pressure as Kansas City did in week 1. So if we see a repeat there, Lamar should be able to push the ball downfield a bit more to Mark Andrews. But now that we've sort of covered our position by position takes to some extent, we can get into some of these drafts here. My only complaint against Underdog that you will see me levy on this show is that I think the lobby is poorly organized and some of these contests are a bit difficult to find. But we'll start out with a couple regular battle royales, and then maybe we can mess around with some of the 12-team drafts, which I've really been enjoying. They're $3 12-team drafts, which fill up fairly quick, which I'm generally pretty happy about. Let's see if I can even find battle royale. I'm just going to keep scrolling indefinitely
you
here.
Were over to the left. Further to the left. It was one of the first few. You scroll by it. Yeah.
Yep.
But you're correct that this is awful design.
It's
like if you fine on mobile, but yeah, not good on desktop.
If you have 3 or 4 active contests, I think the way that they lay it out is perfectly fine. If you have, 12, 15 active contests, which I really, really appreciate that they are giving us a bigger breadth of, buy-ins and tournament types, single entry, 3 max, different sizes. That's all great, but there just needs to be a slightly better way to organize it. DraftKings figured this out 10 years ago. I'm confident Underdog will eventually step toward that direction. But we drew the 101 here. My lean is CD. I have been taking some cup at the 101 because if you want any cup, you kind of have to take them at the 101, but I'm way underweight Dak. So I was hoping that at least through some of this show, we could get a little bit more Dak Prescott exposure. How are you generally handling getting the first pick in these drafts?
Yeah, no, I'm kind of with you. So the Cowboys, I wrote them up as an amazing matchup against the Saints, like man heavy, cover one heavy stuff. They are the biggest stand I want to take. CD, Dak in general. I like Brandon Cooks as a scroll down too. I forgot to mention him earlier. So yeah, and if that's the case, as we were talking about before the show, you have to take CD at 101 if you want your exposure to be good. And yeah, I'm okay with that. We have Lamb projected ahead of Cup on the site regardless. So I'm okay. I'll get my Cup exposure on DraftKings.
Yeah, and Dak Prescott averages 47 more DraftKings fantasy points per game at home compared to the road if you look at his stats after week 6 last year. Also after week 6, which, by the way, Dak was the QB1 after week 6, CeeDee Lamb scored over 40 DraftKings points in half of his games at home. Obviously, that's DraftKings scoring, but 40 DraftKings points is still worth 33, 34, 35 on Underdog. So yeah, really, really like these Cowboys stacks. And part of the issue with drafting earlier in the week is that, like I mentioned pre-show, Ryan, as your takes harden, sometimes you realize that your exposures aren't quite aligned with the guys you actually want. And that's kind of where I'm at with Dak Prescott, where I'm sort of panic drafting, just trying to get as much Dak as I possibly can now that it's, really set in that the matchup is awesome. He's playing at home. Matchup isn't just great for him. It's great for CD, great for Brandon Cooks. And I know we were actually talking about Luke Schoonmaker a little bit for DFS. I don't think he would be in play at all in a battle royale style draft. Maybe in a 12-teamer, I think you could argue for Schoonmaker as like a really sneaky scroll down option, but that still feels a bit thin.
Yeah, no, I another note that I had on Dak is so CeeDee Lamb went over 30 DraftKings points in 6 games last year, and Dak was above 28 in 4 out of the 6. So usually, if Lamb is going to get a ceiling game more often than not, we get one from Dak as well. So yeah, very, very into stacking them up there as much as I possibly can. And that's a battle royale take, and that's a main slate take too, because the Dak ownership looks like it might not be too bad.
Yeah, especially coming in at QB6 on the main slate. I mean, I would certainly take him at this point ahead of Kyler, even though that's not something I did a whole lot in my early week drafts. Arizona, by the way, has been really, really run heavy as of late, and we saw that again in week 1. So I do have a bit more concern for Kyler than I would a player like Dak. We're coming up on the 12-13 turn here. I mean, if things really went our way, we'd at least end up with one of these sort of top 3 options, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Ryan, how do you generally like to handle this? I'd imagine I'd like to probably grab a running back here, maybe look at tight end. I mean, we know where we're going at quarterback.
Yeah, I would probably just scroll down to tight end. I'm okay with any of the three. As I said, McBride is my tight end one this week, so he'd be fine. I'd have taken Rice if we had the option, but yeah, I'm probably okay just waiting at running back or just reaching on Mason. Honestly at this point.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate the reach on Mason. We can take, let's go Kelsey here. I just haven't taken a whole lot of Kelsey, but I am with you on McBride being the overall tight end one. Yeah, Pacheco, Gibbs are fine. I really want more Jordan Mason. So we'll grab Jordan Mason here. And then, I wouldn't hate making this a double with Brandon Cooks, especially because Cooks is a guy who's going to go really unowned in this contest. You have to scroll a good bit to get to a guy like Brandon Cooks, but overall pretty happy with the team so far. Jordan Mason, CeeDee Lamb, Travis Kelce.
Yeah, no, totally agree. I think the Cooks double makes a lot of sense here. And yeah, as like you got the wide receivers on screen right now, I don't think we're missing out on that much projection at all, even if we just drafted Cooks right now over some of these guys. So yeah. Definitely cool with that. I love the Alvin Kamara bring back as well. So we've kind of solved this team already, 3 picks in. But
yeah, I mean, and honestly, those are some of the most fun drafts to do when you know exactly who you want to take, and it just all sort of lines up. I'm with you on the Kamara pick. I think he is outstanding. I know we both grabbed his over 4.5 reception prop. He averages about 3.5 more fantasy points per game in losses compared to wins. Obviously, Dallas is a 6-point favorite in this game. And then you also noted, I believe in your advanced matchups column, that Dallas really brings the heat in terms of pressure. DeMarcus Lawrence, Micah Parsons combined for 18 pressures last week. No running back gets targeted more on a per route basis, and it really isn't close than Alvin Kamara. So he, probably a stronger play on a site like DraftKings, which is full PPR, but even on a half PPR site, like Underdog, I'm more than willing to take him when he's not going until, let's see here. Yeah. RB11. I think that's pretty strong.
Yeah. I mean, you're getting an ownership discount on Kamara, which is awesome on this site. Yeah. That's kind of crazy. I did not expect that going into the week, but yeah, I mean, as you said, like against pressure, Card throws to him way more than anyone else. You see, like Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed's target rates come way down against pressure. Kamara's goes way up. So it all checks out there. Taysom Hill wasn't vulturing him last week. His usage was actually good. He was being used at the goal line. So yeah, that's kind of all you can ask for. It's week 2. I'll play like a dusty Alvin Kamara at this point, but week 14, week 15, maybe I'm not making this type of argument, but yeah. I just like it a lot right now. And I should have liked it more in week 1. I'm mad at myself for coming off of that. That was an early week take for me that I eventually came off of. But
they did score 47 points. So basically every Saint got there. I don't know if you have to feel too bad about being down on them. I mean, pretty much all of
unless
us.
You're Chris Olave. Every Saint got there except for Chris Olave.
That is true. Well, and I mean, somehow Taysom Hill didn't manage to have a good game, despite being one of my highest owned tight ends. Or maybe that's why he didn't have a good game. Hard to figure that out exactly. I'm just going to go Dak Prescott and Kamara here. Generally speaking, in some of these larger field tournaments, I mean, the main battle royale, 68,000 entries. I'm not often going out of my way to correlate as much as I am in this entry, but I feel a bit more comfortable with it here because we are getting so many guys past that 33 ADP mark. Dak Prescott, Kamara, and then of course Brandon Cooks, who is going to be our last pick here, are all not. I should say, they're often not being taken in every draft. Prescott to some extent, but especially Kamara and definitely Brandon Cooks. I mean, Cooks could clock in at 2, 3, 4% ownership in this contest. So not sure if you have any take on us posting a fairly correlated team and maybe a larger GPP than that's generally optimal for.
Yeah, I agree. Like this is probably better if we were doing like something smaller field or like a 3 entry max or one of those, which they have a ton of. Maybe we should hop in one of those next to do a team like this, or to do it with San Fran or something. I'd be down for that. But yeah, I think, as you said, I think it's fine. Yeah, we've got a lot of low owned guys in here, and also this slate is weird in that there are like what 5 games over a 45 point over under that all project pretty well, and then everything else is really terrible. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to talk yourself into a lot of these like more naked one-off plays this week, in my opinion. We had mentioned like Amari Cooper as a scroll down, and I almost wrote him up in my column because of what you were talking about with the man coverage splits. But ultimately I didn't, because I looked at Deshaun Watson's splits against man coverage, and I was like, this isn't something I want to advocate for right now. I just can't do this at this very moment. So yeah, I don't know if you have like a gross spot, like a spot in a gross game that you're feeling confident about, that's probably something you should attack this week. But aside from, I don't know if like Brock Bowers and Derrick Henry count, but that would be the closest thing to that for me, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of these running backs playing in, grosser spots are pretty viable. If I am going, with gross picks, it is generally at that position, Ramondre Stevenson, Jerome Ford, Najee Harris, all guys who project okay. And, you could certainly see a multi-touchdown performance there. But yeah, this slate is a bit weird where, we have these middle round quarterbacks in Anthony Richardson and Jaden Daniels who are playing in quite gross games. And then you have the highest total game of the slate with Baker Mayfield and Jared Goff, where they're largely going undrafted. So, I think there are some pretty strong angles here with game stacks just because of the way the slate shakes out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think you have to, like make that decision going into this is, am my team like just stack it up? Because one of these is probably going to win, because there's a lot of really good stacks that are attainable. Or am my team like just draft wide receiver, running back, Jaden Daniels, and basically, which I think either could win, certainly. But yeah, I don't know if I have a full take on that yet.
I'm a bit more willing to do that when I get some value. Like if there's a big faller, say Kyron Williams fell 7 spots to me, I'd be a bit more willing to just projection max because I feel like I got a pretty unique combo in the early rounds. But generally speaking, I have found those builds to just feel a bit grosser. I can't quite get this team to show up, but if I remember correctly, it was Dak Prescott, Alvin Kamara, Jordan Mason, CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, and Travis Kelce. So that's a team I feel pretty comfortable with, even in massive field contests, at least in part because the ownership was so low. We will rip one more battle royale, and then we can move on to maybe some of these single entry or 12 team style contests. Want to give our viewers a good variety here. Someone asked for our thoughts on Zach Charbonnet starting. I think, my biggest issue is that the game environment is really, really gross here. Obviously, this could be a pretty massive bell cow workload, but yeah, I am just a bit worried about the game environment. If you're debating in DFS between like him and Jordan Mason, I think it's pretty clearly Mason, even with the higher ownership. Do you have any takes, Ryan? And, in these contests, are you at all interested in Charbonnet?
I mean, so I didn't catch what percent Bill we're at for the main right now. It was like 40 or 50% maybe is what was in my head. So Sharp hasn't been drafted until before 4 p.m. today. So I will say, how much does that matter with this projection? Maybe not a lot, but you're getting probably even more of like a break on ownership with Sharp than you would be getting from like an Alvin Kamara or a Ramondre Stevenson. So maybe here it matters for like DraftKings. I agree. Mason is clearly the better option. Yeah, so I'm not crazy about it. And maybe the Seahawks try to go a little more pass heavy too. This coaching staff was obsessed with Ken Walker the entire offseason. Like we were a little surprised, I think, at how much they ran the ball in week 1. But oh wow, we drew 101 again. Look at that.
Do you want to rip another CD team? I mean, I would not hate more Dak exposure. Obviously, we could go with a slightly different build. I don't want an exact repeat of what we just submitted, but I'd be more than happy with CD at this spot. So
Yep. Yeah. Let's do CD, and we'll do another DAC build, but we'll set rules for ourselves.
Yes,
We
we
will
will.
not take Kamara. We will not take Brandon Cooks. How's
Yeah,
that?
if we do, I will finish the Cincy Light that I am drinking on stream immediately. If we somehow accidentally end up with those guys, but yeah, I think that's a great note on Sharbs, where in DFS, it's just not super tempting because obviously the field has plenty of time to adjust. But yeah, the fill on Battle Royale right now is 54%, and like you mentioned, he hasn't been drafted yet. So in our projections, he isn't necessarily popping. Let me pull him up here. But when you consider that the ownership right now is 0%, and by the time the contest kicks off, probably won't get higher than, what do you think, maybe 5-8%, somewhere in that range. He is a tempting play. That said, in half PPR, he's only RB16 on the main slate. So it's not like you're really gaining a ton in terms of projection. It's more of the ownership angle.
Yeah, I think I like him more than Najee Harris, but that's about as far as I'll take it. Yeah, I don't know. Like I was kind of saying, we were a little surprised at how run heavy the Seahawks came out in week 1. I think that might have had more to do with how obsessed they were with Ken Walker than like any sort of like offensive philosophy. So if they see Walker as clearly better than Sharbs, and that was like what they wanted to do on offense, maybe they go more pass heavy. I don't love. I don't know that there's an angle there in Battle Royale. Like I don't really want to be playing DK Metcalf against Christian Gonzalez or anything like that. But yeah, I don't know, or Geno Smith. So yeah, there's not really an angle to take advantage on the other side of it. But that's kind of where I'd be leaning, or just thoughts I'd be having.
Yeah, I think that's fairly sharp. This is going to shake out pretty well for us. We're going to end up with one of Rashee Rice or Jonathan Taylor. So I'd be pretty happy with either guy. I think that is pretty strong for the 12-13 turn here. If we do get Taylor, would you want to just wrap up running back, or would you feel more comfortable waiting? And we do not get Taylor. So definitely Rashee Rice. Where do you think we should look for a second pick here? I'm a bit torn between tight end and running back.
Yeah, I think the two paths in front of you are you go tight end, or you do like since we're only single stacking and not bring backing, we could do like the Derrick Henry, Brock Bowers thing if we wanted.
Okay.
So
yeah,
I'm cool wherever you want to go from there. But those are what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I certainly like that. For what it's worth, guys, Derrick Henry averages 10 more fantasy points per game in wins relative to losses over the last 5 years. That's an absolutely massive sample, and it looks like he's the exact same guy in Baltimore. So more than happy to take Derrick Henry here. And I do really like that mini stack with Brock Bowers. Hopefully, when it comes back around to us, we could land a Jordan Mason, since we don't have Debo. And then we can go from there. Obviously, we're going to be looking at Dak as our main quarterback, but probably running back next. Wouldn't you agree, Ryan?
Yeah, no, definitely would love to get Mason. If Mason's gone, what do you like at running back? Because this is like, so if we're planning to take Bowers, we don't necessarily have to scroll all the way down. I don't know. J.K. Dobbins in our projections isn't great, but I can definitely see this being like a really good spot for J.K. Dobbins against possibly the worst defense in the league from what we saw last year. So, or from what we saw last week, excuse me. So yeah, I could be talked into a Dobbins over like a Kamara or a Stevenson if we know we're saving on ownership. But I don't know. We have both of those guys just straight up projected better than Dobbins. So interested in your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm not super excited about Dobbins. I think I'd rather just bite the bullet in DFS because the projection isn't great. I mean, it was certainly encouraging that he outsnapped Gus Edwards 4-0 I believe it was inside the 10. So the goal line work was there, which honestly was a bit surprising to me. So there is some touchdown equity there, but he feels a bit similar to guys like a Xavier Worthy, where, the hype is driving up his ADP a bit more than the peripheral numbers probably should suggest. Ideally we just land, Pacheco might be a bit redundant to Rice. We're not going to get Pacheco, but if Gibbs fell, that would be absolutely awesome. As these scroll down options go, though, I really like Kamara. I think there is maybe some juice with Josh Jacobs, if only because Green Bay won't be able to throw it all. Malik Willis, 3 career starts, 0 games over 100 passing yards, 5.2 yards per attempt. That's worse than not only every NFL quarterback, every UFL quarterback. I don't know if Malik Willis could really even cut it as a starter in spring football. So, yeah, Josh Jacobs is a bit tempting, but I mean, man, Najee Harris. I just keep coming. I keep staring at him, man. He keeps getting me. Let's make sure no tight ends fell. Probably McBride here.
It's kind of tempting, yeah.
Yeah,
I
or
think that's fine, yeah.
we could also go Kittle. We're not going to get Mason. We're not going to get Debo.
Oh, actually, yes, I like that. Yeah.
All right.
Kittle,
Let's go.
Kittle, I do like. Kittle always has a ceiling, but yeah, it's hard to get him in these when I'm planning to take Samuel or Mason anywhere else. So yeah, whenever we don't, I'm cool with that. Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Now we're back at running back. And again, this is a tougher spot. We could run it back with Kamara again. We kind of already said we don't want to do that. We could also get a bit of a mini stack with Aaron Jones, who I have not taken yet. Do you have any takes?
I'm probably I'd quicker go to Jacobs than Jones, I think. Right. Yeah. So this whole like Green Bay game is so funny to me. So now that we drafted Jacobs, I'm going to make fun of the Packers. Malik Willis averages 73 passing yards per game in his 3 full games in his career, which is hysterical. I mean, Jacobs could have 30 carries this week. That would not shock me at all. So I mean, maybe that's bullish, but yeah, I just don't get what the Packers are doing, man. They did you see they listed Jordan Love as questionable? I'm saying this now. Watch him play, which would be crazy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, like we're listing Jordan Love as questionable on Friday just to we're gamesmanshipping here. We think we're the 49ers, that no team will ever realize that we're going to start Malik Willis this weekend. How have they not gone and done anything else, man? This is like a team that should be competitive, right? Like I guess they're just signing off on the next 3 to 4 weeks. Just weird to me.
I mean, it's the classic Peyton Manning quote, right? Where if 18 goes down, we're fucked. It seems like there are a lot of NFL teams that have taken the exact same approach, and the Packers are absolutely included in there. I think another interesting note on this Packers game is that the spread is only 3. I know you and me talked about this quite a bit. I don't think that spread comes anywhere close to reflecting the blowout potential in this game. And that's probably a bit more of a note for DFS. That said, we always are, more on the side of Vegas as a source of truth relative to our own personal opinions. And with the spread only being 3, that does make Josh Jacobs a bit more tempting of a play, because I imagine most people would see, Malik Willis is starting, I can't take any Packers. By the way, highest Packers receiving prop this week is Jaden Reed at 32.5. Next closest is 24.5 for Romeo Doubs. That's how down Vegas is on this passing attack. It's absolutely brutal. Jaden Reed, by the way, was limited today. So his 32.5 passing prop might come down a couple of yards with the injury concerns there. I do think he'll play, so I'm not too worried about that. But, obviously we're not taking those guys in this format here. Ryan, what would have to be done for you to take a share of Malik Willis in Battle Royale?
Oh my God. What would have to be done? Like, what are you going to do something for me? Like,
if I paid for your entry, I'd assume you'd do it, right? What if I paid for 80% of your entry with the stipulation you have to take Malik Willis? Would you do that?
No, you have to control it completely. Why would I throw away 20% of an entry? That just seems like
here's the only thing I'll throw at you. What if Malik Willis got good? What if he became good since the last time we saw him start?
So it's funny because I was having the same conversation with my boss today, and I was like, yeah, I can't stop thinking about this Packers and Colts line. Like, Malik Willis is so terrible, and they're going to start him. It's only -3. And my boss is like much more of like a college football fan than I am, or relative to NFL. And he's like, oh, Liberty was so good that year. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe he recaptures some of the Liberty magic. But yeah, I'm going to need 100% of that entry if you want me to do it.
Yeah, no, I think that is very reasonable. This Malik Willis stuff is pretty brutal, and honestly, I'm just surprised at how much Vegas seems to think he may not be a complete disaster, at least for Green Bay's outlook on winning this game here. Ryan, what do you think between either a 12-man, I really like these $3 12-mans, they tend to fill up pretty quick, or, we could press for a higher dollar single entry tournament here. Do you have a preference?
Well, I mean, let's rip a 12-man. We can do the single entry at the end. How about?
Yeah, that's a good call. Let's at least see how full the 12-man is, because if it's empty, okay, we only need
All right.
4 more. If you guys are in the chat, definitely feel free to hop in here and draft against us, as long as you promise not to take anybody that we like. Let all the best values fall to us, of course. Ryan, are there any tournaments that have stood out to you outside of the main Battle Royale that you're particularly interested in entering? For me, I really like the $20 3 max. It's only 564 entrants, which is, a really, really small field, which means you can correlate pretty heavily. So I'm grabbing some pretty big game stacks in that. Do you have anything else that you like outside of the main BR?
Yeah, I really like, I forget what the name of the tournament is now. They name their tournaments the most ridiculous things on Underdog. Yeah, it is. So they'll do 2 maxes where it's super small field 2 max, but they'll drop them, like, at least in week 1, they were dropping them at totally random times, like from Thursday through Saturday night. I think one came up at like 2 a.m. I'm drafting at 2 a.m. on Saturday night, and I'm like, oh, cool, like special tournament. I get a 2 max in here in a small field. So, yeah, I can't remember what it was called. I wish I could, but yeah, if you're no life in it and you're staring at the Underdog app and drafting teams all day on Saturday, like I'm probably going to be, then look out for those, because those are awesome.
Yeah, that's great advice. I also have no life, so I will be keeping an eye out for those tournaments. We had somebody ask full PPR, Jerome Ford or Travis Etienne. I think I would give a slight lean to Ford. You look like you agree with me, Ryan.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I think Scott said this first, but yet no player lost more redraft and dynasty value than Travis Etienne in week 1.
Bigsby looked good, man.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm so like the parlay of Tank Bigsby getting legitimate work on the ground, not through the air so much, but what was an actual part of the running game, like as early as the Jaguars' second drive, Etienne fumbling in the end zone, and yeah, I just, and then Tank Bigsby actually being good. Like I was not like an Etienne backer at all this year in any format, so it's fine with me. I get to just sit back and laugh at it. But oh my god, I feel so bad for any Travis Etienne touts. Like that is not the run out I ever would have expected or thought was reasonable. So yeah, well, give me Ford, honestly, just for the projected workload.
And that unfortunately kills one of the greatest Scott Barrett tweets of all time, where he said if Tank Bigsby's name was Microcar Smallsby, he would not be in the NFL right now. Unfortunately, might not be true anymore. So shout out to the CEO, Scott Barrett. Someone asked what tournament this is. This is the $3 12-man. I believe it's called the Squib Kick. Yeah, for the main slate. So $3 entry, covers all 13 games on the main slate, 7,500 total entrants, 20K in prizes, 12-man drafts with 2K to first. I kind of want to go Justin Jefferson here and then hope, well, Debo won't come back to us in a 12-man.
Yeah, I'm pretty indifferent Amon-Ra or Jefferson for that exact reason. Yeah, we're not
okay.
Doing stack stuff.
Yeah, I'll lean a bit towards Amon-Ra here. Tampa Bay obviously blitzes at very high rates. His targets do tend to go up a bit under pressure. Ryan, I believe you had some matchup notes on Amon-Ra, didn't you?
I did. Yeah, he against the blitz. I wish I could remember the percentage off the top of my head. I'll have to pull up my article, but yeah, Amon-Ra is clearly like Goff's favorite target against the blitz. Yeah. Now you might say, oh my God, Jared Goff against the blitz, like that sounds terrible. He's the worst quarterback in the league against pressure, which is true. But the Buccaneers last year, despite the insane blitz rate, were not very good at generating pressure. They were 20th in pressure rate over expectation. The Lions still have the best offensive line in the league. I'm not too concerned about it. So I think it's just going to be a lot of blitzes, a lot of the short middle of the field stuff open. And yeah, a lot of production for Amon-Ra. He's the one I'm leaning towards the most of this Lions pass catcher group this week. Brett super disagrees with me about Sam Laporta, which makes me very nervous anytime Brett Whitefield super disagrees with me. But for the same reasons, Sam Laporta fantasy points per route run against the blitz was like tight end 24 last year, which it's because Amon-Ra just vacuums up every target against the blitz. But yeah, that's crazy stuff to me. But I mean, this game environment's awesome regardless. Like the Bucs have multiple defensive backs on the injury report, so it's hard not to like it kind of whatever way you attack it.
Yeah, and I believe that was one of the notes that I had for these 12-team drafts is that, getting in on this Tampa Bay Detroit game is really, really great in these 12-team drafts. You get by far the best game environment of the main slate. And a lot of these pieces are going really, really late. Baker, Goff, QB7, QB8. So yeah, pretty strong stuff, at least from this game. And I do like the Amon-Ra start, I think, more in a 12-teamer than I would in a 6-teamer, because I am just a bit more excited to get to the best game of the slate in terms of total.
Yeah. I mean, you can get a Godwin who, like, as far as receivers on this slate goes, projects fine for where he's going. You can go either side of the quarterbacks. Yeah, it's decent all around, but I agree with what you just did and clicking Henry over him.
Yeah. I mean, if Henry fell to us at pick 21, I think that would be pretty strong. And of course he does not. I imagine we probably want to go Godwin here, and then that would give us multiple outs at quarterback for the
This is like our one chance at tight end, probably. But that's the only.
Probably. That is true. I do feel pretty comfortable waiting at running back, so I'm certainly not eager to take any of those guys. We can hope a tight end falls. I'll grab Godwin. Man, I do really like both these guys. Chris Godwin, by the way, guys, in the Cooper Kupp role in this game, for this team. And we just saw Cooper Kupp go for 21 targets last week against Detroit. So this could be a really, really great spot for Chris Godwin. Someone said they're trying to trade Ingram and Ridley for a tight end upgrade. I think Mark Andrews is probably who you'd want to look at. I imagine Andrews owners are largely panicking. So that is what I would look at. Oh, we could go tight end here. Grab Kittle. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah.
Could also go running back.
I don't care about these running backs. Yeah, I think it's clearly Kittle here.
Yeah, and I do feel comfortable with a Najee Harris and Aaron Jones, a Charbonnet. Later on in drafts, and I just do not feel comfortable at all. If we scroll down and look at some of these other tight ends, Zach Ertz, Jake Ferguson isn't going to play. Hunter Henry, Cade Otton. I mean, it gets really, really bad, and everyone wants to play Debo, everyone wants to play Jordan Mason, but we know George Kittle can absolutely go off plenty of 30-point games.
Yep. The case for Kittle here is, okay, now if whatever we believe about whether the 49ers knew CMC was playing on Monday or not, like the case for Kittle here is, okay, they've had a full week now to game plan, knowing likely they wouldn't have CMC. Maybe Debo just runs even more and isn't used that much as a receiver. I don't think this is likely. This is kind of what they did with him before they acquired McCaffrey. 2021 was it, when he basically played like running back the first half of the year and then wide receiver the second half of the year, and everybody for some reason thought that he was better as a running back, even though his splits were better when he was getting fewer rushes. So maybe they just throw him back into that old role, and Kittle is suddenly the clear number one or number two option in the passing game, and that's how he gets there. I mean, Kittle averages like 18 underdog fantasy points per game with Ayuk and Debo, or with Ayuk or Debo out of the lineup over the past few years. So that's an amazing ceiling out of a tight end. So happy to take Kittle here. I guess maybe 12 team is where you get the Kittle exposure, just because it's harder to guarantee that you're getting a Debo or a Mason every single draft like we want to.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I think with the Kittle pick, that also gives us an additional out at quarterback in case somehow Jared Goff and Baker Mayfield went before we were comfortable taking them. We might be able to grab a share of Brock Purdy, who I think is a great play this week. He's the best quarterback there is against too high, and Minnesota runs a lot of too high. We had someone in the chat asking if they should start Kenneth Walker or Jerome Ford. Our injury expert suggests Kenneth Walker is probably going to need surgery. So that's not great. I think you're looking at IR for Walker. If it's Ford or McLaurin, I would definitely go Jerome Ford. Jaden Daniels last week, 83 passing yards to running backs, which is absolutely brutal. Only 3 attempts of more than 10 air yards. That was last among all quarterbacks, unless you include Tyrod Taylor, who played like 5 snaps. So yeah, pretty brutal passing performance from Jaden Daniels. I'm certainly concerned about the rest of season value for Terry McLaurin. Ryan, I'll ask you, if you are taking Jaden Daniels in these tournaments, are you at all interested in McLaurin? I imagine that would probably only be palatable in a 12-team draft.
Yeah, I guess it's fine in a 12 team. I think you're just giving up too much projection in a 6 team though.
Yeah.
Like the whole, there's too many good wide receivers on this slate. There's too many, as we were talking about earlier, there's too many really high total games, really good game environments that we actually like. So yeah, I'd rather take, if you're taking Daniels, the thesis is, okay, all of those games are going to be decent, but not amazing. Or Daniels rushes for multiple touchdowns and just takes over, and it's optimal to have him unstacked with the pass catchers of whatever QBs went off in the passing game. So, and same thing with Richardson, same thing with Lamar, really. So yeah, not that interested in McLaurin. I don't know. Maybe I'll eat my words. The secondary is terrible. I know Scott is kind of tepidly interested in McLaurin this week, but
oh god,
yeah.
He
wrote McLaurin's name on my note sheet, and I was like, no, Scott, you can't.
Yeah,
you cannot trick me into putting Terry McLaurin into my article. That's not happening.
Do you have a strong preference between Goff and Baker? I feel pretty comfortable with either here. Obviously, I've been leaning Goff in my own drafts, but
yeah, I mean, Goff at home. That's kind of where it stops.
That's
Jared Goff, top 5 QB at home. Give him to me.
All right. So then we have the very fun task of figuring out who we want our 2 late round running backs to be. Thankfully, running back is fairly deep on this slate. I actually think taking Charbonnet here could be pretty tempting. I also don't hate Brian Robinson. This is one of the few games Washington could win. Brian Robinson saw really good usage last week in a game where Washington was trailing throughout. So, in positive script, this could be a pretty solid spot for Brian Robinson. Do you have anyone here you really like?
Oh man, yeah, this is getting pretty gross and pretty difficult. Yeah, I would probably lean Charbonnet of everybody here. Jones is fine, but yeah. I think it's just Charbonnet, and you hope that both teams run the ball 30 times, which is definitely in play in this game.
Yeah, it looks like Charbonnet and Jones are the highest projected remaining values on the board for us, using our half PPR projections. So yeah, pretty fine with Charbonnet there. Ideally, we'd get Aaron Jones on the run back. If Aaron Jones was off the board, then we're probably looking at B-Rob, Etienne. All of those are fine. We do get a little bit of correlation though with Jones and George Kittle. Underdog does not have 100-yard bonuses, but if you guys are playing DFS, maybe not super relevant this week against San Francisco, but Minnesota coaches said they were trying to get Aaron Jones to the 100-yard bonus last week. So, kind of like Josh Jacobs under Antonio Pierce, I do think that'll be relevant on the games where Minnesota is a bit favored here. Might give Aaron Jones the few extra carries to get him those bonus 3 points on either FanDuel or DraftKings. But this team's looking pretty good so far. We have Jared Goff, Zach Charbonnet, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Chris Godwin, and George Kittle. I've done maybe 4 or 5 12-team drafts, and honestly, this is one of the best teams I think I've ended up with so far.
Yeah, this is looking pretty good. I just kind of, while we're waiting, I do want to answer a few more questions from the chat that I saw
Go for it.
unanswered. Braylon Allen, Jalen Wright, and McLaughlin on my bench in PPR. Would you drop any of them for Blake Corum? I would drop Braylon Allen. I would think that Blake Corum, both of these guys, you're never flexing, right? I would take like a Blake Corum with Kyron injured versus a Braylon Allen with Breece Hall injured. Maybe that's me being overconfident in like the pre-draft evaluation of those two players, which maybe isn't as relevant. But yeah, I would lean Corum there. Would you trade Waddle for Tank Dell? Is that selling too low? I think I would, honestly. I think Waddle's kind of screwed without Tua, and Dell could just as easily I really liked both of these guys in redraft. I liked Waddle a little more in redraft, but even if you would ask me pre-Tua having that happen to him last night, I said, yeah, it's probably like a 60-40 chance of Dell outscoring Waddle the rest of the way. So yeah, I'm definitely cool with that now.
Yeah, absolutely. I would certainly trade Waddle for Dell. I would say that I am probably a bit more of a Jalen Wright hater than you are. I think it would take more injuries for Jalen Wright to get on the field. Brett Whitefield, also, who is our lead charter Fantasy Points film expert, has said Jalen Wright's blind. He can't find the open hole many times. And in his handful of touches last night, I think you saw that. He does not have good vision at all. Maybe that's something that can develop for him over the course of the season. But yeah, I would certainly be concerned for Jalen Wright's ability to see the field. I mean, he needed a Jeff Wilson injury and an Achane benching to even, get any touches last night. So he might be a 0 for the full season, Jalen Wright.
Yeah, no, that's totally possible as well. I mean, yeah, no, that's fair. And also, like, as we're talking about, we're probably down a little bit more on the Dolphins offensive environment in general at this point. Raheem Mostert, I'm assuming, is a decent shot to play next week too. Yeah, it's probably more dominoes in Jalen Wright's way than in Braylon Allen's way. I agree there. Good catch, Jake. Yeah, I would drop Wright instead of Braylon Allen to get Corum.
Ryan, we're in running back hell right now.
Oh God, I haven't been looking.
So this is it got worse and worse while we were answering some start sit questions. It looks like
McLaughlin in half PPR, unironically.
Geez. Zach Moss is our best projected value. Gosh, man, I do not like any of these. We could go Zeke and just hope he cucks CD and Dak.
That kind of works.
All right. I took Zeke. God, that is.
Yeah. If anyone's falling into the end zone multiple times, it's Zeke that's on this board, right? So
yeah, that's true. And I mean, like we mentioned, we don't have Dak, we don't have CD. So maybe those guys fail because Ezekiel Elliott gets into the end zone a couple times. Overall, though, pretty happy with the team. Jared Goff, Zach Charbonnet.
Examiner would be calling me immediately if Ezekiel Elliott does something for this team. Oh my God. It will not be good this week for me.
No, it would not. But it's Goff, Charbonnet, Zeke, Amon-Ra, Chris Godwin, and George Kittle for our 12-team draft. I'm pretty happy with that. I think I want to hop into a single entry team. Probably got enough time to draft one or two more here. So let's see how the single entries are doing. I really like both the $20 single entry and the $20 three max. Big fan of both of those contests. I've already drafted a decent bit in the three max so far. So let's see if the single entry is full. Oh, and we got in at the perfect time. So that's great. Like we've mentioned multiple times, generally what you want to do in these smaller contests is correlate even more. So that will be the goal, is a heavier game stack here. I think drafting from the 4 spot, if you assume Kupp, CD, Breece Hall are all off the board, I really like the Justin Jefferson pick. Then we can hope Debo comes back to us and stack up this Minnesota-San Francisco game, which to me, after Tampa Bay and Detroit, has pretty clearly the second best shootout potential on this slate. Do you differ in that at all?
No, I completely agree. Part of my write-up of Purdy and Debo is that I expect the Vikings to stay in this game. Last year, they were top 5 in pass rate over expectation in games that they lost. they were still like 6th best even without Kirk Cousins. So yeah, Kevin O'Connell is coming out here with Nick Mullins and with Josh Dobbs and absolutely airing it out when they're losing. So I would think he's going to do the same with Sam Darnold. And yeah, I mean, the results, obviously different game script that we expect, but obviously the results were totally fine with that last week. So yeah, I would expect this to be that's a big part of the reason I really like Purdy, really like Debo, is I think I'm not that convinced by like the Bears case for this game environment.
So we did manage to get Breece Hall falling to us here. I think we basically have to take Breece Hall. Breece Hall, 30 of 31 snaps with Aaron Rodgers, 12 of 12 carries with Aaron Rodgers, 5 of 5 targets out of the backfield with Aaron Rodgers under center. This is like a 2019 Christian McCaffrey workload if he maintains that for the full season. Just really, really incredible usage for Breece in week 1. I mean, Scott wrote it up as if we were redrafting today, Breece would be the 101. So yeah, really, really strong value there at 4. Of course, Debo goes right before us.
I feel less bad because if we had gotten him and then not taken Jefferson, I'd have been annoyed. But
yeah, that's true. I'm kind of leaning Evans here. We can get exposure to the best game environment of the slate, or we could wrap up running back with Jonathan Taylor, who was at a 95% snap share last week.
I think you go Evans here just because wide receiver gets so bad after. I don't love how Evans projects, but yeah, it gives us access to a game stack that we could kind of go heavier on. I don't know. Maybe this is a spot where you draft Gibbs, not someone I've been drafting a lot, but that could be one way to approach this. But
yeah, and I really haven't taken much Baker, so I certainly wouldn't hate turning this into a Baker team. But yeah, I'm with you. Wide receiver gets so gross if you get out of these top 9 picks with 2 running backs, or sorry, after wide receiver 9, if you're just at 2 running backs, you're going to have a really, really hard time filling out the rest of your roster in a way that feels comfortable from a projection standpoint. So that can be pretty tough. More than happy with the Mike Evans pick. It would be amazing if Jonathan Taylor made it back to us. I doubt he will, because he is pretty clearly the best value on the board right now. Assuming he doesn't, I would like the Gibbs pick. Oh man, we get Taylor here in single entry. Okay. I really like that. Yeah, Jonathan Taylor, 95% of snaps last week, every single backfield touch. I don't know if there's much better usage than that, man. It is pretty awesome to get that in the 3rd round.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And then the rest of the team is very easy because we can, if you want to go Baker, we can do that. There's a very easy bring back with Jameson Williams, who projects pretty well for us. No like fun schematic notes on him or whatever, but I think he what top 5 in first read target share last week, right?
Yeah.
So
along with Quentin Johnston, right? I think if we want to go Baker, if we want to go J-Mo, I think it really
tight end right now.
Yeah, gotta go Kittle here. As much as we did talk up Bowers, I'm not sure we'll end up taking any shares of him on the show because Kittle just kind of keeps falling to us at the perfect time. But so far, Breece Hall, Jonathan Taylor, Mike Evans, George Kittle. I love this team. I mean, this might be my favorite team that we've drafted tonight.
Yeah, no, this is perfect. This is exactly what you want in single entry because we're not skimping on projection like at all, and then we're still gonna have half of our team like in some sort of correlation. So yeah, that's awesome. It's a fairly unique combo to get both Hall and Taylor plus Evans. So yeah, this is a really good one. I don't know, Jake. I might need what were we doing for the equity in our winnings on this show? I don't know. I might.
I purposely left that vague. I was really hoping you weren't going to ask about that. But I would be more than willing to give you half the equity of this lovely team. Assuming we win over $1,000, Ryan, I'll have that be the only qualifier since I am paying the buy-in. When you're in a situation like this where you know who you want your quarterback to be, and obviously we're going to assume no one else is going to take Baker here, I'm just going to auto draft J-Mo, even though their ADPs are the same. Maybe somebody takes Baker, maybe the Godwin drafter takes Baker, although I don't think it'll get back to him before it gets to us. But even so, that gives us an extra out with Goff. We could also grab Purdy just in case. So yeah, this is a really comfortable build. But back to the win equity discussion. That's the Neil Orfield agreement, is that you get half the team's equity, but only if it wins more than $1,000. I did draft.
No, that works for me. Yeah,
I drafted enough.
I'm glad too. Go ahead. I was going to say I'm glad too, because the teams I draft on stream with you are a lot better than the teams I draft at 2 a.m. on my phone.
Well, see, that's part of my problem when I draft these teams. Before I say this, I'll review what we got. We got Baker Mayfield, Breece Hall, Jonathan Taylor, Mike Evans, Jameson Williams, George Kittle. This might be my favorite 6-man team that I've drafted all week, and certainly my favorite draft of the stream. But yeah, that is like one of my problems when I draft these teams, is that I'm so easily distracted. I'm always pulled towards Twitter, maybe something else fantasy related. Maybe I'm doing multiple drafts at once. Maybe I'm texting somebody. It's quite easy to make picks. I love this show because it really forces me to lock in, talk through every pick that I'm making, and obviously doing it with someone extremely, extremely sharp like Ryan Heath. Got through a pretty good number of drafts there. Ryan, why don't you let the people know where they can find all of your lovely work?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at RyanJ_Heath. Gonna be trying to drop a lot more stats and stuff on there. Big thread every Sunday night, just recapping the day and kind of all the usage stats. Also, Advanced Matchups is live on FantasyPoints right now. Just written form of some of the spots we talked through tonight, and then also some other ones, just some angles I like for the main slate, for some props as well. That's Advanced Matchups on FantasyPoints.
Yeah, definitely go check out Ryan's stuff. I think it's safe to say he is probably, or definitely, the fastest growing fantasy analyst in the industry right now. I know your followers, you and me were neck and neck like 6 months ago in terms of followers, and you've doubled me up pretty recently. But yeah, the stats, the articles, obviously, the shows that you do, all really, really fantastic stuff. I thought it was funny that you said you were dropping a stats thread, because I have to bring up that my jokes are still crushing your stats in terms of engagement. I had one today on Twitter, 2,900 likes. Ryan, have you had any tweets today with 2,900 likes?
I don't think the closest I've gotten in the last few days was the Devon A. Chan is my child joke. So no, I have not.
That's the one thing I can hold over Ryan's head.
Complaining about the jokes now.
I know. Yeah.
Please go back to giving us stats, Jake. We want to hear
your
stats. We don't care about your jokes.
I will go back to the stats, but I will say that dumb jokes that I think of at 2 a.m. get 1,000 times more engagement than the coolest stat I could possibly think of. So that is a little tough, but that's life. And I will continue to hold the success of my jokes over Ryan's head, because his stat tweets certainly do better than my own. But my jokes do better than everyone's tweets, so it doesn't matter. All right, guys. Well, that was a ton of fun. Really enjoyed the second ever episode of the Underdog Drafter Party. Really appreciate everybody for tuning in. Really appreciate the questions from the chat. And we will see you guys next week at 8:30. Hope to see everyone at the top of the leaderboards.
What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.